What was Earth really like before dinosaurs? Before T-Rex ruled the land, before the mighty Brachiosaurus towered over forests, and long before birds filled the skies, there was another world, a stranger, wilder, and far more dangerous Earth. This was the planet before dinosaurs, a place where the continents were unrecognizable, the air was toxic, and creatures unlike anything alive today crawled, swam, and hunted beneath blood-red skies. Let's travel back hundreds of millions of years to witness what Earth was really like before the age of dinosaurs. The chaotic beginning. The story begins over 540 million years ago, during a period scientists call the Cambrian Explosion. Earth had already existed for billions of years, but this was the first time life truly bloomed in the oceans. The land was barren, no trees, no grass, not even a single flower, just endless deserts of rock and sand, baked under a brutal sun. The air was thick with carbon dioxide. You couldn't breathe it for more than a second. But beneath the waves, life was exploding in every shape imaginable. Trilobites, strange, armored creatures with compound eyes, ruled the seabed. Giant sea scorpions prowled the shallows, growing longer than a human. And the ancestors of modern fish, jawless, boneless swimmers, filled the oceans with motion. It was a world of firsts. The first eyes, the first skeletons, the first predators. Earth was inventing survival from scratch, and nature was experimenting wildly. But this paradise of chaos wouldn't last. Something was always waiting to end it. The first mass extinction. Roughly 440 million years ago, Earth entered one of its coldest periods, the Ordovician Ice Age. Glaciers spread across the planet, trapping water and lowering sea levels. Entire ecosystems drowned in ice or suffocated as oceans vanished. Nearly 85% of all marine species disappeared. The once vibrant seas turned silent and empty. It was the planet's first major reset. But extinction always brings evolution. When the ice melted, the survivors, the toughest trilobites, mollusks, and early fish, evolved again, adapting to warmer waters. Coral reefs began to appear, building the first underwater cities. Life was learning resilience, and soon it was ready to crawl out of the ocean for the very first time. The rise of the first land creatures. About 420 million years ago, something extraordinary happened. Plants, tiny, moss-like organisms, began creeping across the barren land. With them came oxygen, shade, and eventually soil. For the first time in history, the color green spread across Earth's surface. Then came the pioneers, insects, centipedes, and spiders, crawling across the damp, primitive forests. But the real revolution was still to come. The first vertebrates to walk on land. Fish with lungs and fins strong enough to push through mud slowly evolved into amphibians. Imagine creatures half fish, half frog, dragging themselves from swampy lagoons onto land. Their skin glistened under a heavy atmosphere, and they gasped for air that was still difficult to breathe. But each step was history in motion. The oceans were no longer enough. Life wanted more. These were the ancestors of all land animals, including reptiles, mammals, and yes, even dinosaurs. But before their reign began, Earth had to face more chaos. The age of fire and shadow. About 360 million years ago, the world entered the Carboniferous period, a time when Earth became a giant swamp. Humid jungles stretched from pole to pole, filled with trees taller than skyscrapers. But these weren't trees as we know them. They were monstrous ferns and club mosses with trunks as wide as cars. Oxygen levels soared higher than ever before, nearly double today's concentration. And that changed everything. Insects grew enormous. Dragonflies the size of seagulls buzzed through the air. Millipedes longer than cars crawled through the undergrowth. Every breath of oxygen was fuel for giants. Amphibians ruled the land, hunting through the shadows of enormous plants. The air was heavy, the ground was damp, and lightning storms raged almost constantly. It was a world alive with sound. Croaks, hisses, and the endless crackle of fire as forests burned easily in oxygen-rich air. It might sound like paradise, but deep underground, something even more powerful was forming. Massive layers of decaying plants compressed into what would one day become coal. The Earth was quietly storing the energy of this age, waiting for humanity to release it millions of years later. But paradise never lasts long, and this one would end in fire and extinction. The great dying before dinosaurs. Roughly 252 million years ago, disaster struck again. A chain of supervolcanic eruptions in Siberia unleashed one of the most catastrophic events in Earth's history, the Permian mass extinction, also known as the Great Dying. For nearly a million years, volcanoes spewed carbon dioxide, turning the skies red and the oceans acidic. Temperatures soared, forests withered, oceans lost their oxygen, suffocating nearly all marine life. In the end, over 90% of all species vanished, on land and in the sea. Corals, trilobites, and countless others disappeared forever. Earth became a wasteland of ash and dust, a silent graveyard of everything that came before. Yet somehow, life clung on. Tiny burrowing reptiles survived in the cracks of the dying world. From them would rise a new empire, one that would reshape the planet entirely. And this is where the seeds of the dinosaur age were sown, the reptilian revolution. When the Earth began to heal, it was unrecognizable. The land was dry, cracked, and baked by unrelenting heat. But among the ruins, evolution worked its magic again. Reptiles, tougher, faster, and more adaptable than the amphibians that came before, took over. They developed scales to conserve water, stronger lungs to breathe the hot air, and eggs that could survive away from the water. They became the masters of the new Earth. Some grew massive and armored, like the early Prehistorics, hulking plant eaters that roamed swampy plains. Others evolved sharper teeth and faster legs, like the fearsome Gorgonopsids, the top predators of their time, blending reptilian and mammalian traits. The first mammals were also quietly emerging, tiny, nocturnal insect eaters that would one day inherit the planet after the dinosaurs' fall. But for now, Earth belonged to the reptiles, and their rule would evolve into the Triassic period, where the first true dinosaurs began their rise. The air grew clearer, the forests returned, and the land trembled with the footsteps of creatures preparing to dominate for the next 165 million years. A world transformed. Before the dinosaurs, Earth was a planet of extremes. It froze solid, then burned alive. It drowned, then dried to dust. But each cycle, every extinction, every rebirth, shaped the blueprint of life. Without the Cambrian oceans, there'd be no complex creatures. Without the Carboniferous jungles, there'd be no coal, and maybe no human civilization. Without the Permian extinction, reptiles might never have risen, and dinosaurs might never have existed at all. The pre-dinosaur Earth wasn't just a prequel, it was the foundation. It was nature's workshop, where evolution learned its greatest tricks: lungs, limbs, armor, intelligence, and survival. And in the ashes of that age, a new dawn began, an age that would give birth to the giants of legend, the dinosaurs. The legacy before the legends. It's strange to think that every creature alive today, from whales to humans, can trace its roots back to that forgotten era. Those ancient seasoned forests, now buried under rock and time, were the laboratories of life. Even we are echoes of those first experiments: the lungs of early fish, the bones of amphibians, the instincts of the first hunters. The Earth before dinosaurs may seem alien, but in its chaos, it wrote the story of everything that came after. It's a reminder that survival isn't about power, it's about adaptation, and that no matter how many times life is knocked down, it always finds a way to rise again. If this journey through time made you see our planet in a new light, hit the like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to Untold What If, where imagination meets science, and every question begins with two simple words: what if?